Wyoming, known for its brutal winters and sparse job opportunities, surprisingly hosts one of the highest concentrations of billionaires in the U.S., particularly in Teton County. This paradox stems from the area's breathtaking landscapes and attractive tax benefits, drawing wealthy individuals despite the state's overall unappealing conditions. Jackson Hole, a prime example, has evolved from a remote ranching town to a luxury destination. I'm from Eagle Explore Channel. We dive into fascinating stories like this, exploring unique places and the intriguing dynamics that shape them. Join us as we uncover the hidden gems and unexpected tales from around the world. Part 1: Brutal Conditions. Hey there, explorers! Today, we're diving into the curious case of Wyoming. On the surface, it might not seem like the ideal place to live. The winters are brutal and seemingly endless, with snow piling up from September to May. It's one of the snowiest states in the U.S., thanks to some of the coldest temperatures on the continent. And let's not forget the wind. It's intense. The mountains funnel it through the vast valleys, often whipping it up to 50, 60, even 70 miles per hour. It's so strong that Interstate 80 often has to close to trucks because the wind can literally blow them over. Now, for those who brave these blizzards, the rewards seem scarce. The largest city, Cheyenne, only has about 65,000 residents, what many other places would call a town. There aren't many high-paying jobs since few white-collar industries have settled here. The rural areas, which make up most of the state, are known for having some of the poorest quality land in the country. Short growing seasons, limited water supply, and poor soil nutrition mean that even with plenty of open land, agriculture isn't booming. Despite the unique charm and allure of Wyoming's barren landscapes, population numbers suggest it isn't a highly attractive place to live. But here's the twist. Wyoming is surprisingly wealthy. It has the highest concentration of billionaires per capita in the entire country, and most of them are found in one specific place, Teton County. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Your small action means a lot of encouragement for us. Thank you so much. Stay tuned as we uncover why so much wealth is tucked away in this seemingly uninviting state. Let's get exploring. Part 2: Celebrities and Wealth. Back in the 1980s, it might have seemed odd that Harrison Ford, at the height of his fame, chose not the glamorous ski towns like Aspen or Sun Valley, but an 800-acre property in Jackson, Wyoming, a quiet cowboy town by comparison. Since then, this exclusive ranch along the Snake River has become his retreat from Orange County. But in Teton County, Hollywood riches can seem almost middle class. Just north of him, you'll find Amy Weiss, daughter of a Swiss medical manufacturing mogul, who inherited over $2 billion and calls this part of the country home. A bit further down the road is former U.S. Vice President and Halliburton CEO Dick Cheney. A few miles beyond that lives John Mars, the richest man in Wyoming and the 33rd wealthiest person in the world, residing in a relatively modest $6 million house near the Jackson Hole Golf and Tennis Club. Jackson isn't famous for its celebrities, though. It's known for its wealth. The area is filled with private equity partners, oil executives, and tech CEOs who don't have household names but possess significant fortunes. Teton County consistently ranks as the county with the highest adjusted gross income in America, out of thousands. So what explains this paradox? Why does Wyoming, a state not known for attracting many people, rank so highly in drawing those who can choose to live anywhere? How has Wyoming become so weirdly wealthy? Firstly, Teton County is quite different from the rest of Wyoming. Located on the southern end of the Jackson Hole Valley, Jackson is arguably the most beautiful spot in the state. Surrounded by peaks and glacial lakes, it offers easy access to 2 national parks, 3 ski areas, and millions of acres of national forest. It's a place where visitors and residents can ski, hike, and enjoy the rugged beauty of the country, while also enjoying fine dining, direct flights, and shopping at stores like Whole Foods and Target. Part 3: Historical Transformation. This transformation is relatively recent. A century ago, Jackson was a remote ranching town with more cattle than people. Much like Aspen and Sun Valley, it quickly evolved from a ranching outpost into a vacation destination in less than 50 years. This change was driven by the establishment of Grand Teton National Park and the arrival of skiing with the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort in the 1950s and 60s. These developments made Jackson a popular stop for road-tripping families in the summer and a chic ski destination in the winter. The shift from hidden gem to national wealth magnet happened swiftly. Not long after Harrison Ford moved to the Valley, James Baker, George H.W. Bush's Secretary of State, declared Jackson Hole one of his favorite places. That year, Jackson gained international attention when Baker brought American and Soviet diplomats here to discuss arms control policies and clarify U.S.-Soviet relations after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Today, so much money flows into Jackson that the town's services are struggling to keep up with the demands of this wealth. On its peak day last August, about 156 planes took off and landed at the Jackson Hole Airport, most of them private jets. There are so many private jets that in early 2024, county officials approved the construction of a new $50 million private aviation facility to accommodate the increasingly frequent Gulfstreams and Bombardiers flying in from places like Teterboro, Love Field, and Van Nuys. This project includes Hangar 3, a 30,000 square foot facility for parking private planes, and plans for 2 more hangars adding another 58,000 square feet of aircraft space. Such expansion makes sense. Jackson Hole offers the perfect, seemingly untouched landscape for coastal elites to project their fantasies onto, an authentic Western town far from the problems of urban life. But there are many towns across the American West that provide such a refuge, and few have reached the same level of absurd wealth as Jackson Hole. Part 4. Spread of wealth. While Jackson is the epicenter of wealth, there's a broader shift happening across Wyoming. Wealthy residents are not just flocking to Teton County, they're moving to other parts of the state in large numbers too. Take Lincoln County, for example. It's not home to the state's capital, Cheyenne, nor does it contain any of the bigger cities in Wyoming. It's mostly rolling plains, vast skylines, and just a few people scattered every square mile. Its largest town, Kemmerer, only has about 2,500 residents. Yet, this county's new residents have an average income of $149,000, a significant number for a place with so little happening. Like Teton County, people are drawn to Lincoln County's landscapes. It's no surprise that the second Wyoming county experiencing this wealth surge is also in a scenic part of the state, offering mountains, rivers, and an escape from city life. But beyond the natural beauty, lakes, peaks, trails, and streams, Lincoln County, like Teton County, offers another major draw: tax benefits. Wyoming's sections are as ruggedly beautiful and captivating as Colorado's countryside and Montana's mountains. But what sets Wyoming apart are its uniquely lax tax laws. Through a mix of partnerships, companies, and trusts, the state has become a de facto tax haven. Here, Russian magnates, Spanish royalty, and wealthy Americans can stash some escape plan cash thanks to a creative structure known as the cowboy cocktail. This all started in Cheyenne with the formation of the Limited Liability Corporation, LLC, in 1977. Over the decades, with many transformations and signatures, this evolved into today's system. The base ingredient is a Wyoming-based trust, mixed with layers of private companies and concealed ownerships, all designed to provide protection and secrecy to those doing business in the state. Part 5. Economic Disparities. But this reveals Wyoming's conundrum. The very policies that attract so much wealth to the state also prevent that wealth from spreading through the community. For instance, the top 1% in Teton County earn an average of $22 million in income, with about 75% of that being passive income from investments. These wealthy residents flock to Wyoming to keep more of their earnings because the state has no income tax and no wealth tax. Consequently, when wealth leaves billionaires' pockets in Wyoming, it primarily goes to paying those in low-wage service jobs like landscaping, bartending, or ski patrolling. As is often the case, trickle-down economics isn't sufficient. Massive amounts of money flow through the state, but it doesn't stay put. Without reinvestment or taxation, Wyoming gains little more than the title of having the richest county per household, or the most billionaires per capita. This creates a stark and dystopian contrast. Not far from billionaire John Mars's home, on an 18-hole semi-private golf course, this divide is evident. The wealthy golfers interact with the course's beverage cart attendant, perhaps buying a round of beers and leaving a tip. This cart employee, who works for $15 an hour, also lives nearby. Their job comes with guaranteed housing, but it's far from luxurious. For $98 a week, they share a double dorm room off-site or sometimes live in an RV with a free hookup site. In a place where the cost of living is 37% higher than the national average, this employee needs to make $47,000 annually to break even, according to living wage estimates. However, at $15 an hour, even with a full schedule, they barely make $30,000 a year. To make ends meet, after a day shift on the course, the attendant works an evening shift at the Snake River Grill, where a 32-ounce Wagyu steak costs $205, half of their monthly rent. On their days off, going out requires careful budgeting, as local restaurants have average prices ranging from $31 to $60 per person. At Local Restaurant and Bar, one of the priciest in town, 2 burgers start at $76, and the price can quickly shoot up to $200 or $300 with a premium cocktail and any other entree. Part 6. Income Inequality. Let's start with a striking fact. In Teton County, the economic divide is almost as dramatic as its stunning 13,000-foot mountain peaks. Here, the wealthiest 1% make an average of $22 million a year. That's 132 times more than the average income of everyone else in the county. Wow, right? This gap is the widest in the entire country, and it's only growing. Jackson, a popular town in Teton County, sees new residents with an average income of $661,000 per year, while the rest of the population averages around $94,000 annually. To put this in perspective, let's compare it to Aspen, Colorado, another well-known luxurious destination. In Pitkin County, home to Aspen, the top 1% earn about $6.6 million on average, which is only a quarter of what the top earners in Teton County make. Interestingly, even though more than 50 billionaires call Pitkin County home, the income gap there is much smaller compared to Teton County. The economic stratification in Teton County is truly on another level. This influx of extremely wealthy residents affects everyone, making basic services more expensive, driving up childcare costs, and even increasing the price of a simple hamburger. But the biggest impact is on real estate. Housing prices have skyrocketed, making it tough for anyone else to afford living there. Those who can buy property, like celebrities Harrison Ford and Dick Cheney, or top CEOs from the Forbes 100 list, often own sprawling ranches that feel worlds apart from the bustling town centers. So why is Wyoming's wealth so strangely concentrated? It's a mix of stunning natural beauty, an influx of ultra-rich residents, and the rising costs that follow. This creates a unique and fascinating economic landscape that's worth exploring. Part 7. Conservation Easements. And crucially, they've made every effort to ensure their properties remain that way. Untouched, pristine landscapes with unobstructed views of the Tetons. While the establishment of Grand Teton National Park ensured that much of the valley would stay development-free, new residents have made new construction even more difficult through one simple trick: conservation easements. Much like the Duttons on the TV series Yellowstone, wealthy Jackson Hole residents use conservation easements as an indirect way to protect and grow their property's value. Imagine you're a New York stock trader wanting to escape the daily grind. You visit Jackson Hole, fall in love with it, and decide to buy a multi-million-dollar property with a mansion and 50 acres. Your financial advisor suggests a conservation easement to protect your new property's value. By transferring the development, surface mining, and subdivision rights of 49 acres to the Jackson Hole Land Trust, you can retain ownership of the entire property, get a hefty tax deduction, and ensure your million-dollar view is protected forever. It's perfect. You can claim a charitable deduction of up to half your yearly income for 15 years after it's appraised and reduce your estate and property taxes. Plus, it makes your home more valuable in the long term. As demand and scarcity inevitably rise, you won't have to worry about any lower-income housing being built on your property. It's purportedly altruistic, yet at almost no downside to you, personally. Although your land is conserved for public benefit, you don't have to maintain public access to it. It'll still be your property, as well as your future heirs, and it ensures that your house is the only development that will ever be built on it. Part 8. Tax Policies and Wealth. Conservation easements are a practice that's allowed the Jackson Hole Land Trust to hold more than 55,000 acres in trust, in a region where over 97% of the land is federally protected. There's an extremely severe limit on where homes can be built here, which has driven property values to new, seemingly impossible heights, a place where wealthy folks can rest easy knowing they're the only ones who can afford to live there. And yet, With the cowboy cocktail, a term referring to the mix of tax benefits and financial privacy, and Wyoming's lax tax policies, all this wealth is sealed behind Teton County's gilded borders. For those who live elsewhere in Wyoming, their proximity to massive wealth doesn't tangibly help them. Nowhere else has seen the levels of gentrification and modernization Jackson has experienced. Despite other natural wonders like Devil's Tower and the Wind River Range, no other region sees as much visitation. In fact, Wyoming's poverty rate is nearly equal to the national average of 11%, even though its average cost of living is comparatively lower. Teton County's wealth, then, is a stagnant force that largely circulates in and around Jackson Hole to satisfy its residents' unique preferences. So what pays the bills for the rest of Wyoming? It's the physical resource economy. Wyoming sits on some of the biggest shale, oil, and coal deposits in the nation. Collectively, these resources have created an unrivaled treasure trove that's still paying the bills. Drilling and mining succeed here precisely because the state doesn't have many people. Oil and gas companies are essentially free to drill where they want. All that's required is paying slightly higher taxes. Between property and value-imposed taxes, extraction now funds nearly half of the state budget. It's so valuable that when it comes to higher education, a sector that's often first on the chopping block for state budget cuts, the University of Wyoming has a comparatively low tuition rate. It averages less than half of its counterparts in neighboring states. Part 9. Economic risks and tourism. Relying on one industry is risky business. You see, Wyoming's economy is heavily dependent on a single industry, which can be a risky strategy. Imagine this. If the revenue from severance or property taxes drops, it can severely impact essential services. And even though there's a ton of carbon resources here, it's not infinite. Wyoming's coal production hit its peak back in 2011, and natural gas revenue has plummeted by a whopping 74% in just over a decade. In 2020, the governor even mentioned that some small towns might need to be abandoned if upkeep costs get too high. When the coal and gas run out, there might not be much left in Wyoming except for one crucial area: the Yellowstone economy. The last standing economic stronghold could be the greater Yellowstone region, including Teton County. This area is famous not just for its super-rich part-time residents, but also because millions of ordinary folks from around the globe visit to marvel at the massive geysers and towering peaks. These tourists spend money in nearby gateway communities, helping to keep their economies afloat. In 2021 alone, Yellowstone visitors brought in a staggering $834 million in economic benefits to the area. Tourism versus livability. Places like Jackson, with its vast, untouched landscapes, have become incredibly valuable. Despite the challenges of tourism economies, these gateway communities are still more livable for the working class than Jackson itself. However, as tourism booms and tax revenues increase, the problems in Teton County grow worse. Housing crisis and rising costs. Housing costs around Jackson Hole have skyrocketed, making it tough for Yellowstone National Park to recruit employees due to the high prices. An anonymous $40 million donation for affordable housing might help a bit, but many workers are still forced to commute from cheaper areas in Idaho, braving the dangerous Teton Pass. Rising home prices in places like Driggs and Victor are pushing these workers even further away. The wealth divide. So, the cycle continues. Teton County thrives on the extravagant spending of wealthy vacationers, but the gap between rich and poor keeps widening. Thousands of underpaid workers are being pushed out, unable to afford to live here. Wyoming might be one of the wealthiest states in the country in some respects, but for the average working-class person, building wealth here is almost impossible. Wealth in Wyoming doesn't grow, spread, or get shared. It just exists in a very particular way.